I never thought I'd be one of those guys whose life falls apart over a woman, but here I am. Jessica and I had been together for 7 years, high school sweethearts, the kind of couple everyone thought was perfect. We got married last month in a big, romantic ceremony. I was on cloud nine, honestly. I thought I'd finally found the girl I'd spend forever with. Everything seemed perfect until it was. It started subtly. Little things that I brushed off at first. Jessica was suddenly more secretive with her phone, always hiding it when I walked into the room. She'd get annoyed if I tried to look over her shoulder. I'd catch her slipping her phone into her purse quickly, or she'd change the subject when I asked about her plans. She also started working late more often, claiming she was just extra busy with her new job. I believed her, mostly because I wanted to. I was blinded by love, I guess. But then came the texts. Small, suspicious messages, something about "can't wait to see you" and "tonight, going to be so good." I didn't think much of it at first. Maybe she was talking to a friend or someone from work, but she'd start staying out later, saying she was having dinner with colleagues. I remember one night I was home early and I saw her phone light up with a message from Mike. The message simply said, "You're leaving me no choice." That made my stomach drop. I asked her about it and she laughed it off, saying I was paranoid. She called me insecure, told me I was imagining things. It was only when we went on that weekend trip to the lake that I felt something was really off. Jessica was acting strangely, distant, distracted. She kept whispering on her phone, slipping away to take calls. When I finally grabbed her phone to see who she was texting, she snatched it away so quickly I nearly wrestled it from her hands. She yelled at me, called me crazy, said I was ruining our weekend. But I was starting to see the cracks. Then came the real shock. A week after we got back from the trip, I found her phone again and I decided to check her messages. I couldn't believe what I saw. There were dozens of texts from Mike there. Conversations intimate, flirtatious, sometimes downright suggestive. Jessica was talking about meeting him, about how much she was feeling trapped in her marriage, how she'd rather be with him. One message from her even said, "I'm planning to leave after our wedding and run away with him." That hit me like a punch to the gut. I couldn't breathe. I confronted her that night. I was furious, broken, betrayed. I told her I knew about the affair, about her plans to leave me. She scoffed, denied everything, called me crazy for snooping. She said it was just a misunderstanding, that I was reading too much into some harmless texts. She even had the nerve to say I was overreacting because I was jealous and insecure. But I was. I knew what I saw. I knew she was cheating, and I knew she had been lying to my face for months. The emotional shock was staggering. I felt anger, betrayal, and a deep, sickening sadness. How could she do this, after everything? We'd made vows, built a life together, and she was planning to throw it all away for some guy who she claimed was better. The worst part, the fact that she still didn't seem to understand the gravity of what she'd done. She acted like I was the one overreacting, like I was the one ruining everything. But I just knew that I couldn't trust her anymore. Not after all those lies, not after the betrayal. I've been trying to piece it all together, trying to figure out what went wrong. Honestly, I don't have the answers yet. I just know I can't keep pretending I didn't see what I saw. I don't know what's next. Do I just forgive and forget? Do I fight for her, or is this the end of everything? I keep waking up in the middle of the night, replaying it all in my head. The betrayal, the lies, the fact that she was planning to leave me for him. It's like I'm living in some sick nightmare. I never thought my life would get to this point, but here I am, wondering how I got so deep into this mess. After I confronted Jessica that night, everything started to spiral even further out of control. She just stood there, looking at me like I was the one who'd lost his mind. Her eyes were cold, dismissive, even like I was an obstacle standing in her way. She kept telling me I was overreacting, that I was making a mountain out of a molehill, that I didn't understand what she was going through, that she needed space, that she was tired, that her feelings had just changed. But I wasn't buying any of it. I couldn't sleep that night. I stayed up, staring at the ceiling, trying to process what I'd just learned. Jessica kept claiming she loved me, that it was just a stupid mistake, and that she'd never actually leave me. She said she was confused, that she didn't mean for any of it to happen, but I knew better. I'd seen the messages, read the words, felt the truth in every line. She'd been planning this, hiding it from me, and lying through her teeth every time I asked her about her behavior. The next day, I started paying closer attention. I noticed how she'd suddenly become more defensive, snapping at me over small things. She'd leave her phone face down all the time now, and whenever I asked her about her plans, she'd give vague answers. Change the subject. It was obvious she was trying to hide something, but I didn't want to believe it. I kept trying to give her the benefit of the doubt, telling myself she was just stressed or maybe just going through a phase. But then I found her suitcase packed, hidden behind some closet shelves. At first, I thought she was just organizing until I saw the clothes she was bringing. A few outfits I knew she'd never wear for me, never in a million years. She was planning a getaway, I was sure of it. When I pressed her about it, she laughed in my face, calling me paranoid again. She said she was just visiting her sister out of town for a few days, that I was making a fuss over nothing. But I knew she was lying. There was a look in her eyes, that sneaky, guilty look that she couldn't hide anymore. That's when I finally decided to take matters into my own hands. I installed a hidden app on her phone, something I'd never done before. I wanted to catch her in the act if she was planning to run. I didn't want to be blindsided. Again, I just needed proof, something concrete I could hold onto, something that would make her face her own lies. It was a gamble, I guess, but I didn't see any other way. I was so tired of feeling like I was losing my mind, and I needed certainty. And certainty I got a few days later when I saw her schedule update on the app. She was claiming she was out of town, but her phone was constantly pinging from a hotel nearby. Then I saw the messages. So many from Mike, the same guy she'd been talking to all along. They were planning to meet that very night. Jessica was planning to leave me, yet she still kept lying, still kept pretending everything was fine. That's when I realized I couldn't keep pretending I didn't see what was happening. She was actively planning to walk away from everything we'd built, and she didn't care who got hurt. The thing is, I felt so betrayed, so humiliated. How did I miss all the signs? I'd always believed she was the one, my partner, my best friend. Now I'd found out she'd been sabotaging us all along. I kept asking myself, how could she do this? How could she lie so convincingly? And the worst part is, she still refused to admit the truth outright when I confronted her with the evidence. She said I was distorting things, that I was jealous, that I was imagining it all, that I was paranoid. But I knew better. I knew what I saw, what I felt inside. That night, I sat alone in the dark, staring at her messages and thinking about everything she'd said. She kept trying to gaslight me, trying to turn it around and make me look like I was the crazy one. She kept saying she loved me, that she was going to end it with Mike, that she'd never meant for it to happen. But I wasn't buying any of it anymore. Trust was shattered, broken beyond repair. I felt a boiling mix of rage and deep sadness, like I'd been punched in the gut repeatedly, and I couldn't breathe. It was like my whole world was crumbling, and I was just watching it happen in slow motion. I still don't know what I'm going to do next. Part of me wants to fight for her, too. Believe her lies and try to fix what's broken. But another part knows that once trust is gone, it's really hard to get back. I'm just so tired of the lies, the betrayal, the feeling of being completely powerless. I thought I was married to someone I could count on, someone who loved me. Instead, I got this cruel, heartbreaking nightmare. And I have no idea how to wake up from it. After I collected all the evidence, I knew I had to confront Jessica again, but this time I was ready. The anger inside me was boiling over, but I also felt a strange clarity. I needed to hear her out, get her to admit everything, even if I already knew the truth. I remember sitting across from her, the tension thick enough to cut with a knife. Her face was calm, too calm, and that made my blood boil even more. I asked her straight out if she was planning to leave me for Mike. Her eyes flicked away, then she scoffed and rolled her eyes. "God, you're so paranoid," she snapped. "You're making a big deal out of nothing. I have no idea what you're talking about." That was her typical response: deny, deny, deny. She kept insisting she was just tired, stressed out, and that I was imagining things because I didn't trust her. But I had the screenshots. I had proof that she was planning to run away with this guy, that she'd been lying about everything. Her reaction was a mix of anger and contempt. She called me possessive, crazy, and accused me of blowing things out of proportion. She told me I was jealous and insecure, that I was pushing her away, that she deserved to be happy. that she was done with the lies, but her tone was all deflection. She was trying to make me feel guilty for catching her, for ruining her plans. But I wasn't buying it anymore. I saw her for what she really was, someone who didn't care about the vows we made, someone who was willing to throw everything away just for this Mike guy. I felt a strange, cold numbness settle over me. It was like I was watching someone else's life. I realized that I had been naive, fooling myself into believing we had something real. But now I knew she'd been planning her escape for months. All those late nights, the secretive texts, the packed suitcase, she'd been preparing to leave me behind. That thought hurt worse than anything else, worse than the betrayal itself. It made me question everything I'd ever believed about love and loyalty. I wanted to yell at her, to scream at her for the pain she was causing, but I held back. Instead, I told her I needed some time to think, that I couldn't do this anymore. I told her I was done being a fool, that I deserved better than someone who lied to my face and planned my betrayal behind my back. She looked at me with a mixture of disdain and surprise, like she didn't expect me to stand up for myself. That moment, I realized something. I wasn't going to be the fool anymore. I was finally waking up. Over the next few days, I kept going over everything in my head. I couldn't eat or sleep. All I saw were her lies, her sneaky texts, her plans to leave, and the way she'd brushed me off like I was some inconvenience. I felt like I'd been hit by a freight train, like my world had been turned upside down. I kept asking myself, how did I miss all this? How did I not see the signs? And then the guilt hit me, guilt for trusting her, guilt for thinking she was honest, guilt for not noticing the cracks earlier. I started reaching out to a few friends just to get some perspective. Most of them told me to cut her loose, that she wasn't worth the pain, that I deserved someone who wouldn't betray me like this. Honestly, hearing that made me feel a little stronger. Maybe I'd been too blind to see how toxic she'd become. Maybe I needed to stop wasting my time on someone who clearly didn't love me anymore. But part of me still hoped, maybe stupidly, that she'd come clean, admit everything, and we could fix this. Maybe she'd realize how much she'd hurt me, and how much I still loved her. That was the hope I clung to, even as I prepared myself for the worst. Every fiber of my being told me I should walk away, that I should forget her and start over. But deep down, I still felt a flicker of hope that she'd come to her senses, that she'd see what she was about to lose. That hope, I think, is what keeps me hanging on a little longer. But the truth is, I don't know if I can ever trust her again. Not after this. Not after all the lies and deception. I keep telling myself I need to take care of myself, that I need to look out for number one now. But it's hard. So much of me still wants to believe in the woman I married, even when I know she's safe in the arms of Mike now. I just don't know how to go forward from here, or if I even want to. All I do know is that my life has changed forever, and I'm just trying to figure out how to live with that. A few days after the confrontation, everything felt surreal. I was walking around like a shell of myself, replaying every moment, every sign I'd missed, every time I brushed off that gnawing suspicion. My mind kept circling back to her words, her excuses, her denials, and I kept asking myself how she managed to lie so convincingly. The Jessica I knew, the girl I loved, seemed like a stranger now, and the woman I saw in her eyes that night, cold, dismissive, arrogant, wasn't the same person I'd married. I tried to keep myself busy, though it was almost impossible. I'd go to work, put on a brave face, but by the time I got home, I felt drained. Every time I saw her, I was reminded of the lies and the betrayal. I couldn't stand the way she looked at me, with that mixture of disdain and boredom, like I was a burden she was trying to get rid of. She kept insisting she'd end things with Mike, that she loved me, but her words felt hollow, like a script she was reciting to keep the peace. One night I decided I couldn't keep pretending everything was okay. I needed to see what she was really up to. So I installed a simple keylogger on her phone, not something I was proud of, but I felt cornered, desperate for answers. I wasn't trying to spy on her exactly. I just wanted to know who she was talking to, what she was planning. I didn't expect much, but I figured it was better than nothing. That was the worst mistake I've ever made. I knew she was texting Mike, but I didn't realize just how far she'd gone. One night her phone pinged with a message from him. Can't wait to see you tonight, it's been too long. I saw enough to know she was planning to meet him again, probably that very night. My stomach dropped and I felt a rage that I couldn't contain. She was actively betraying me, right in front of my eyes. The next morning, I couldn't hold it in anymore. I woke her up before she left for her visit to her sister, and I showed her the messages. Her face froze, then twisted into that contemptuous sneer she had when she thought she was in control. She rolled her eyes, crossing her arms. "So what? I was just talking to a friend," she snapped. "You're so paranoid." I was stunned. How could she lie so brazenly? She was caught red-handed, and she still refused to admit she was cheating on me. I told her I'd seen enough, that I wasn't going to be played anymore. She finally snapped, raising her voice. "You're just jealous because I don't want to be stuck in a boring marriage with a guy who's losing his mind over a few texts. Get over yourself." That was her way of dismissing it all, like I was the crazy one, like I was overreacting because I cared. But I felt nothing but cold fury and heartbreak. That day, I made a decision. I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. I told her I was done with her lies, her games, her betrayal. I told her I deserved better, that she was a liar and a cheat. She looked at me with that bitchy smile like she thought she'd won. But I knew better. I knew I'd finally seen her true self. The Jessica I loved was gone, replaced by someone selfish, manipulative, and untrustworthy. I began packing my things that very night. I didn't want to stay in the same house. I didn't want to be around someone who could so easily throw everything away. I was hurt, yes, but I was also angry. Angry that I'd given her years of my life, only to get this in return. I kept thinking about the times she lied to my face, the nights she secretly met him, the way she dismissed all my feelings like they were nothing. It was a lot to process, and honestly, I felt like I was losing my mind. In the days that followed, I started talking to lawyers, trying to figure out what my options were. I knew I had to protect myself, especially financially. I also reached out to a few friends who had gone through similar things. Their advice was simple: don't let her see you broken. Be strong, be prepared, and don't let her manipulate you anymore. I took that advice seriously. I was done playing her game. I was done being the naive guy who thought his wife was perfect. Every day now feels like walking through a fog. I wake up with this heavy weight in my chest, knowing I was betrayed so deeply by the person I trusted most. I've lost a lot of sleep over it, haunted by her lies, and the thought that she was planning to leave me for someone she claimed was better. It's a sick feeling, knowing that I was just a placeholder for her, someone she married out of obligation or convenience, and that her true plans involved running away with Mike. Honestly, I don't know what the future holds. Part of me still wants to believe she'll come back, that she'll realize what she's losing. But a much bigger part knows that I have to let go of that hope. I can't build a future on lies and betrayal. I have to start over, even though it hurts like hell. I guess I'm just trying to breathe through the pain and figure out how to pick up the pieces of what's left of my life. All I know is that I'll never trust her again, not after this. Not after she showed me who she really was. The days turned into a blur of legal consultations, packing, and trying to piece my life back together. I found myself constantly revisiting that moment when I first saw her messages from Mike, the sickening realization that she had been planning this for months. Every time I thought about it, I felt a deep ache in my chest, like a part of me had been ripped out and stomped on. I kept asking myself how I didn't see it sooner, how I was so blind to the signs. The truth is, I wanted to believe she was everything I thought she was: loyal, honest, faithful, but now it all seemed like a lie. I started to feel numb, almost detached from everything. I'd sit in silence for hours, staring at nothing, trying to understand what I'd done wrong. Was it me? Was I not enough? Or was she just a selfish bitch who never cared about the vows she made? I wanted to be mad at her, scream at her, tear her apart. But mostly, I just felt empty. Like I was watching my life slip away, piece by piece. One evening, I finally sat her down for what I thought would be the last conversation. I told her I was leaving, that I couldn't be around someone who lied and cheated so blatantly. She looked at me with that same bitchy smile, as if she didn't care. "Whatever," she said, rolling her eyes. "Go ahead, leave if you want. You'll see how little you mean to me after I find someone better." That comment hit me harder than anything else. She was so convinced she was untouchable, so convinced she could discard me. Like trash after all we had been through. I realized then that I needed to set boundaries to protect myself emotionally and financially. I contacted a lawyer, started drafting the paperwork for separation. I also decided to change the locks and remove her access to the house. I couldn't afford for her to come back and continue the charade. I felt a strange mix of relief and despair. Relief that I was finally taking control, despair that it had come to this point. But even as I moved forward, I kept thinking about her, about how she had lied, how she had planned to leave me, and how she dismissed my feelings like they didn't matter. It made me question everything I thought I knew about her, about us. Was she always this selfish? Or had she just been pretending to be the girl I married? I honestly didn't know anymore. All I knew was that the woman I loved was gone, replaced by someone cold and calculating. In the midst of all this chaos, I also started to see things more clearly. I saw how toxic she'd become, how she used her charm to manipulate, how she played the victim whenever things got tough, and how she always prioritized herself over everyone else. It was kind of a wake-up call. I realized I'd been clinging to a dream that was never real. I'd been hoping she'd come around, that she'd see what she was about to lose. But it was clear now. I was just a backup plan, someone she was ready to toss aside for her own happiness. Looking back, I see now how blind I was. I ignored the little warning signs, convinced myself that her distant behavior was just stress or work. I told myself she loved me because she said she did, even when her actions told a different story. But I was wrong. She didn't love me. She loved herself and maybe Mike more than she ever loved us. The worst part, the sense of betrayal, that feeling of being so completely disposable, that she could lie, cheat, and plan her escape while I was out of town on our honeymoon. It's a pain I wouldn't wish on anyone. The kind that eats you from the inside out, making you wonder if you ever really knew her at all. And that's what's hardest to accept, that the woman I married isn't the woman I thought I knew. She's someone else entirely. Now I'm just trying to survive this mess, trying to hold my head up and keep moving forward. I don't know what the future holds, but I do know it's not with her. I've lost enough, my trust, my happiness, my sense of safety. All I want now is to heal, to find some kind of peace. And maybe someday I'll look back and realize this was the moment I finally woke up for good. The worst part about all this is the emptiness that's left behind. I wake up some mornings feeling like I'm just going through the motions, like I'm waiting for some relief that probably won't come. Honestly, I've been angry, devastated, betrayed, everything all at once. But underneath it all, there's this strange sense of clarity. I realize I wasted so much time trying to see the best in her, trying to believe she was the woman I fell in love with. But she was never that person. She was someone else, someone selfish, manipulative, and willing to destroy everything for her own happiness. I finally accepted that I can't fix this. I can't make her see what she's lost or force her to care about the damage she's done. She's made her choice, and I have to live with the consequences. It hurts like hell to admit that I might never get those years back, that I might never trust anyone again the way I trusted her. But I also know I have no choice but to move forward, to pick up the pieces and try to rebuild something better, something healthier, something that's mine and mine alone. I've learned a lot from this nightmare. Mostly that trust is fragile and it can shatter in an instant. That people can hide who they really are behind a mask for a long time. And that sometimes the best thing you can do for yourself is to walk away, even when your heart is broken. Because staying wouldn't change anything. It would just keep the pain alive. Now I'm focusing on myself. Getting therapy, working out, reconnecting with friends I neglected. I don't want to carry this bitterness forever, but I also refuse to forget what she did. I refuse to let her betrayal define me. She's out of my life now, and honestly, that's a small victory. Not because I want her to suffer. I just want peace. I want to believe I deserved better all along. Looking at everything objectively, I see that I was in love with an illusion, the woman I thought she was. The truth is, I was just holding onto something that was never real. And I'm glad I found out now, rather than years down the line when it would have hurt even more. This whole experience has been a brutal lesson in trust, in love, and in realizing that sometimes the hardest thing to do is to walk away from someone who's hurt you deeply. So I'm done. Done with the lies, the betrayal, and the false hope. I'm finally choosing myself over her. It's not easy, and I know there will be dark days ahead. But I also know I'll survive. I'll learn to trust again someday, maybe even love again. But for now, I'll focus on healing, bit by bit, day by day. Because no matter how much it hurts, I know I deserve that much. And someday, I'll look back at this chapter as the one where I finally took back control of my life, even if it was through heartbreak.